So I'm back and I'm slightly less sick today, so hopefully this will sound a little bit better than my past videos, but I'm still getting over that rough cold. But anyway, I'm really excited for today's video because it's really important and I get these questions all of the time. So today I'm going to be going over all of the different types of reptiles and what are the best for beginners, intermediate, and advanced keepers. I am going off of my knowledge and my experience, so these are just completely based upon my own opinion. If you disagree, please leave a comment and let me know. I don't want to start any arguments or anything, but I'm all about education, so if you disagree, definitely let me know your thoughts because I'd love to have a conversation with you. And if you're here to learn, hopefully you'll learn something new today, and I hope that you guys enjoy the video. So I'm going to start off today with talking about geckos. So the very first beginner geckos that I think are best are crested geckos, leopard geckos, and gargoyle geckos. I think these geckos are best for beginners because they're very easy to care for, as well as they're very, very docile and nice. So they're not really a feisty animal that you're gonna have to worry about with getting bitten, which can be very, very great for a lot of people that are new to reptile keeping and are a little bit uncomfortable with them and still learning about reptiles. They should definitely have something that's easy to handle for them, and these animals are very, very good when it comes to handleability. So overall, they're just great for beginners. However, just because they're easy and good for beginners does not exclude the fact that the beginner should still be doing extensive research before getting an animal to make sure that they can still give the animals everything that they need in their care. Because again, they still need the temperature, the humidity, the husbandry, everything has to still be correct in order for that animal to have a successful life in captivity. Some geckos that I would not recommend to a beginner that I think are more for an intermediate to advanced keeper are any type of leaf-tailed gecko because they are a very delicate and fragile species. They're not for handling whatsoever, they're for observing. They're, again, very fragile. They require very high humidity, so it's just something that's more difficult to care for. That's not great for a beginner. Another gecko that is not good for beginners are tokay geckos, and this is very confused all the time because they're very cheap. They're sold very commonly at pet stores. However, that does not make them good for beginners. These geckos have a nasty bite. They're very, very feisty and aggressive, very intelligent, and they require a lot of patience and definitely knowledge and expertise when handling them, which is why I don't think that they would be the best for a beginner. Another gecko that I don't think are great for beginners are day geckos, and that is because day geckos require heat, which a lot of other geckos may not require. But it does make caring for them a little bit more expensive and pricey. They also are not a gecko for handling. They are very, very fast geckos, and they have a defense mechanism where they can literally slough off their skin and it will just come off. So if you grab one too aggressively and you're trying to capture it because you lost it in your house or something, their skin can come off, which is really, really horrible. You would never want something like that to happen. So again, because of that, I think they require the knowledge and expertise of somebody that has already had experience with keeping reptiles. So the next section that I'm going to be covering is snakes. So the very best beginner snakes that I recommend to people are corn snakes, king snakes, milk snakes, and sand boas. I recommend these snakes for beginners because they don't get too large, their care is very, very simple, and they are great eaters. So that's something that you aren't going to have to worry about, and they just overall are great for having a good first experience when keeping snakes. So that's something that I would recommend. For intermediate level snakes, I would recommend ball pythons, and that is because ball pythons are a lot of the time categorized as good beginner snakes. However, I disagree and don't think that they make good beginner snakes because they do require a little bit higher of a humidity level. And they are also known to go off of feeding, which can be very stressful and difficult to deal with, especially if you're a beginner and you've never had to deal with an issue like that. It's also important to have knowledge on snakes to know how long it's okay for them to go off of feeding and when it's time to go to a vet. Without having that knowledge, a beginner may have no idea and may let their snake starve without ever going to a vet because they may think, oh, it's normal, and that could lead to a dead snake. So that is just one of the many reasons that I think ball pythons are for more of an intermediate snake for somebody that has a little bit more experience and knowledge when taking care of them. The next snake that I think is great for an intermediate keeper is a Brazilian rainbow boa. Overall, I personally think that Brazilian rainbow boas are very easy to care for. They're great eaters. The main issue that can be a little bit difficult, especially for somebody that is a beginner, would be their high humidity levels. Especially as a baby, they need 80 to 90% humidity, which can be very, very hard and confusing for somebody that doesn't have the experience with keeping reptiles. So because of that, I think that if you understand humidity, then these are great snakes that you can start off with. I think that they're just so easy to care for. They're great eaters, great personalities. The babies can be a little feisty, but after you work with them, they calm down very quickly. Bowie was actually my first snake, so everything has gone really well. Again, I did my research before getting her, and I understood the humidity levels and how to do all of that. So if you have that knowledge, then it's something that I think you could go for. The next snake that I think is great for intermediates are just boa constrictors in general. I think that boas are very easy to care for. The main thing to keep in mind that I wouldn't suggest them to beginners is just because of their size. They get very, very large, and that's never a type of a snake that I would recommend to someone that's never had snakes before, since they get so large and they require so much space. But other than that, they're great eaters and they're very easy to take care of, as long as, again, you're keeping an eye on they're a little bit higher of a humidity level. So some of the advanced snake species on my list are green tree pythons, carpet pythons, emerald tree boas, blood pythons, and then expert level would be venomous snakes, obviously. But for the advanced, I think that carpet pythons, green tree pythons, and emerald tree boas and blood pythons are just a little bit harder to care for because of their attitudes. And these snakes are known to be bitey and nippy, especially the arboreal snakes, because they're locked and loaded in position and waiting for prey. They're also just always very conscious of birds and things above them, so they're just known to be bitey because of that. But if you have the knowledge, the experience, then it's something that you can handle. But if you don't have the knowledge or the experience, then I don't think that these animals are for you, and they're definitely more for an advanced keeper. Again, anything venomous, like, you need to be an expert. That's it. So the next category is lizards. And for the best beginner lizards, I put the exact same list as the beginner geckos, because geckos are lizards. But I just wanted to make a separate list for geckos because there's so many different kinds, and I wanted to go over the advanced geckos. But when it comes to lizards, the best beginners, I think, are the leopard geckos, the crested geckos, and the gargoyle geckos. So I'm going to move on to the intermediate lizards, since we already covered the beginner geckos, which are the beginner lizards as well. And for the intermediate lizards, I put on my list bearded dragons, uromastyx, any type of a chameleon, water dragons, frilled dragons, and blue-tongued skinks. And some of you guys may be a little bit confused with my list, because some of those animals are very commonly known as beginner lizards when it comes to reptile keeping, such as the bearded dragon or the blue-tongued skink. And the reason why I don't have the bearded dragon as a beginner lizard is because they require more space, and the heat and the UVB can be very confusing to beginners, and a lot of the time I see people not understanding it or just simply not providing it when it's needed, and then their animal gets very sick. So that's something that I would like to avoid, and I think that that knowledge just goes more into the intermediate level, which is why I think bearded dragons, uromastyx also, because uromastyx require a very high heat index, and that can be kind of challenging for a beginner, in my opinion. So because of that, they go in the intermediate section. So blue-tongued skinks are another lizard that people would think are great for beginners, and I personally don't think so, because simply the humidity. And here's where it can get a little bit like in the gray area, because if you have a northern blue-tongued skink, they require a lower humidity level, which is very easy to achieve, which does make them very easy to care for. However, if you have an Indonesian blue-tongued skink, they do require a higher humidity level, which again, I think that humidity is something that a lot of beginners struggle with, which is why I would put it more in an intermediate section. And frilled dragons get very large, they need the heat, they need the UVB. It's just another animal that, because of the lighting, I think that they should be in the intermediate section. They also do get a little bit larger and do require a large enclosure. And chameleons, I've talked about this many times. They are just not a beginner animal. People see them, think that they're cool. They just want to hold it and have it out all the time. They are just not really like that. They don't want to be messed with. They want to be left alone. They aren't really great with handling, and they're very hard to take care of because, again, they need the full spectrum heat, UVB, a tropical heat though. Make sure you're not overdoing it. But they do require misting systems, or you to manually mist them all day long to make sure that they are hydrated, because these lizards do not drink from water bowls. This is a concept that I don't think beginners would ever really understand, and because of all the work that they require, they're just on the intermediate to advanced list. And moving on to the advanced lizards, these are the monitors, the iguanas, the tegus. These lizards get huge. They require a lot of space, a lot of experience, especially because they can give you a nasty bite and put you in the hospital. So this is something that should not be taken lightly. I don't think any beginner whatsoever should be getting a tegu or any type of monitor species or iguana because of all of the experience that I think is required when owning one. So moving on to turtles, I don't think that turtles should be for beginners whatsoever. A lot of people love turtles. That may be the #1 reptile that they would want to go to start their reptile collection because they're comfortable with turtles. However, turtles require a lot of work, and because of that, I think that they deserve the title of being in the intermediate section. They require the heat and the UVB, a very large tank to swim around. A lot of beginners have horrible times with this. They don't do the research, they just don't understand, and it results in a lot of sick turtles due to improper husbandry. So I think that the knowledge and expertise, again, should just be more for an intermediate caretaker when it comes to reptile keeping. So somebody that's a beginner, I just would never recommend any type of turtle. So they're all intermediates. If you have the knowledge and you know everything that they need and you know that you can provide it, then it would be a great pet for you. But for the basic beginner person, it's going to be a no for me. So for more of an advanced turtle, that would be a snapping turtle. Snapping turtles get massive. A lot of people own these guys as pets, and I think that they require a lot of knowledge and expertise, especially when handling them, because they can literally bite your fingers off. They can be very dangerous, so it's something to keep in mind. Again, they're going to require a lot of space because they get so massive. So those are just hands down an advanced keeper reptile. And moving on to the last part of my list, I'm going to cover tortoises. When it comes to tortoises, I mainly think that it depends on the size. So a beginner should never get a tortoise that is huge unless, I mean, obviously if you have the space and the knowledge, you know that this tortoise is going to get huge, then it's not a problem for you. However, there is a lot of times when people see tiny little sulcata tortoises, they think they're adorable and they want to take them home, and then they end up with this huge bulldozer tortoise that's knocking down their walls one day, and they don't want to deal with it. So it's very important to do your research before getting any animal, and I think that the best beginner tortoises are the Russian tortoises or the Greek tortoises, just because they stay small. For the intermediate or advanced tortoises, it would be the larger species like the huge sulcata or even a red-footed tortoise, just because they require a very high humidity level. And again, humidity level just comes with more knowledge and expertise that I don't think beginners really have. And that completes my list, because I'm not going to go over every single type of reptile in the pet trade because we will be here all day long and I'm going to lose my voice. But those are a lot of the common ones that I see all the time that I wanted to bring up and mention, because there is a little bit of a gray area when it comes to this topic, and it is very opinionated. I think that no matter what animal that you are choosing to get, you need to make sure that you are doing extensive research to make sure that you have the time, the money and the space to take care of the animal that you want. The more that you work with these animals, the more that you learn, and then I think that you can kind of move up and really understand things like the humidity levels and little husbandry things, and how to understand when your animal is sick and needs vet attention, and just little things like that that I don't think beginners start off with, and they don't have that knowledge, and then their animal ends up suffering. So it's just a consequence that I think that can be avoided through research and just making sure that you're getting animals that you know are the proper animal for you to have. So I hope that this video was helpful. I hope that I didn't offend too many people. If you disagree with me, I would love to hear your thoughts. I don't want to argue with anyone, but I definitely love to hear your guys' opinions. Everyone is entitled to their own opinion. So just let me know what you think. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you in the next one.